Welcome to the Inflection Podcast, where we explore the pivotal moments that have shaped us into who we are today. I am your host, Anebi, and I can't wait to dive into these moments with you. Let's get it. Welcome to another episode of the Inflection Podcast. I have the unique pleasure of having with me here today the president of North American division of Launch Ventures. Now, Launch Ventures is a pretty awesome firm that I've had the opportunity to collaborate with on some projects. And Launch Ventures works with companies all the way from MVP to high scale, high growth, bigger enterprises to provide strategic product consulting and development help. Thank you so much for being on with me today, Beejal.
Pleasure, Anebi.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm always interested in learning is the journey, right? Beejal didn't drop out of the sky in 2023.
Oh.
It's been a process for you growing in leadership as a woman in tech. So I just want to dive into that a little bit for what your journey has looked like and growth into leadership.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very different journey. So I'm excited to tell you about it as well.
Yeah.
So I started as a software engineer at American Express here in Phoenix, graduated with a bachelor degree in computer science. And it was a great role. I really learned a lot, but I quickly realized that I wasn't as interested in how to build the products as I wasn't actually how the business teams make decisions about the products.
Yeah.
I started to divert my interest in that direction, and I wanted more exposure to business and finance. So I decided to go to UCLA and did a master's of financial engineering. So left pure computer science for a while. Went to UCLA. And then I graduated. I did emerging market research overseas. I worked in Austin at Dimensional Fund Advisors doing investment analytics. And then in 2020, I moved back to Phoenix. And I was looking for a new... No, I couldn't stay away. I wanted to come back. I was excited to come back, and I was looking for a new opportunity. So what I did actually was I randomly reached out to the CEO of a startup that I had a short internship with in 2014. And I was just wondering if he could connect me to anyone he knew that might help me get a job. That's the reason I reached out to him. And he instead asked me if I was interested in building and leading the North America business for his software development firm. Yeah, which was a firm I interned at over 5 years ago at that point. Talking about inflection points you would never imagine. And this was completely unexpected, right? I had a great 2-month internship with him. We hadn't been in touch for over 5 years, and I never thought that short internship would have any sort of impact on the direction of my career.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought sending him this message on LinkedIn was just a shot in the dark, to be honest. But I always wanted to be on the business side of products. I didn't think it was possible because I didn't have the experience required. So I jumped in. I took the opportunity, and that's how I became executive vice president of North America for Launch Ventures.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing story.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It speaks to the power of, for lack of a better term, shooting your shot. Many folks are stuck, and sometimes in different areas of our lives, the biggest challenge is that first step. Cold email, reaching out to someone or taking a step. And because you never know. Now, there are a lot of steps you take which don't lead anywhere, but there's some that do.
Only one has to. Only
Exactly.
one has to lead somewhere. So you don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's cool. In your experience as a woman working in tech and growing to leadership, what would you say are certain things from your perspective that have uniquely shaped your leadership style and even business strategy as it relates to that?
Sure. I haven't had any huge experiences. One of the things I remember most was at American Express. So I was in the leadership development program there, and I had this opportunity to shadow one of the senior female directors of the company for a day. And I saw her command the room, regardless of whether her team was male, female. She was making these critical decisions that were really affecting the direction of the business. And to me, that was very motivating. And it's always been those kinds of experiences, right? Connecting with other women in tech, other women leaders, finding mentors and learning from their experience. And to be honest, I have always been one of the few females in my teams, whether you take American Express or Launch Ventures or anywhere in between. But I felt stronger because of that. And learning what's worked and hasn't worked for other women and applying those things has given me a lot more courage. And a very specific example is I've learned from other women that you just need to trust your judgment and have confidence, even when you feel outnumbered. And outnumbered doesn't just mean being a female in a room of males. I think outnumbered for me was also when I'm talking to high level business executives and I have a couple years of business development experience. I do feel quite outnumbered, but
Yeah,
having that confidence and allowing yourself to express yourself and exert influence on the outcome, regardless of your audience, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway from all these small experiences that I've had.
that's huge. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
You and I are both obviously in the Phoenix area, Phoenix
Yep.
tech scene, and also shared which word will I use? The Amex alumni tag.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I worked there a few years too. Boy, a lot has happened in the tech ecosystem here in Phoenix, and it continues to evolve. From where you sit in conversations you're having and just signals in the market, are there certain things that come to mind in terms of how you perceive the tech ecosystem to be evolving and maybe even some untapped opportunities in
Yeah.
the next, let's say, 5 years?
Sure. Like you said, we're both from Amex. And I know when I graduated, there's so many companies here on the enterprise scale that have their tech divisions here. But
Yeah.
I've learned recently, right, is that in the next 5 years, Arizona is going to become the hub of disruptive technology, even from a startup scale, in my opinion, which is something I didn't know until I jumped into this role. I meet so many tech startup founders and their platforms and products are just beyond innovative. But it's not, Anebi, it's not just the products that they've built. It's their mindset that's really revolutionizing. The way they think about problems and the way they solve these problems is very interesting. And there's so much support, which I didn't know in this AZ Tech startup ecosystem, right? I've interacted with organizations like Arizona Commerce Authority, and they're tirelessly working to support startups and always mentorship, funding, everything of the sort. But then I've met so many individuals that are just volunteering their time, right? They've been successful and they're trying to volunteer their time to advise new entrepreneurs. So I think that's
Yeah.
really gonna, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's really gonna fuel our growth in AZ on the tech startup ecosystem and get it to where we are on the enterprise scale as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think for untapped opportunities, I think fintech is just one of the biggest ones in Arizona that we can really tap. San Francisco, New York, those are the hubs of fintech. But I think we're getting close, especially with this world of data and everything. And I think we can be next.
Yeah. And your company has done so much in the emerging tech space.
Absolutely.
AI, blockchain. And
Exactly.
there might be collaborations there on the blockchain side we coming up. But yeah, I am very excited. If I could use one word for my expectation with regards to Phoenix, it is one of hope. There's
Yeah.
so much coming right down the pipeline that I'm seeing, and
And so
I'm
much
all for it.
determination as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
People are going after it. And like you said, we have so much here that people don't realize.
One thing that comes to mind, right? In the last few years, you've been able to grow so much. But what are some things, if any, that come to mind that you wish you knew then, that you know now?
It's true. There's one thing when I think about it, and it's that I wish I knew my career didn't have to perfectly match my degrees.
It's a good
Yeah.
one.
So, yeah, I studied computer science, financial engineering because I wanted to know about the how do I build an app? How do I make an investment strategy? But then while that's what I really did want to learn, it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I realized that when I started working. So at work, I cared more about the why and the what. Why are we building this product? What can be done to make the team succeed? So I always thought I had to stay on the technical side of engineering because it was my degree. The role I'm in now isn't directly linked to my degree. And actually, I have been able to build a business without a business management degree. And
Yeah,
rather, I can leverage my engineering background to understand clients better, my engineering team better, and lead more effectively because of that. I don't think it's important for your degree to perfectly match what it is you want to do. Or, in other words, it's okay to stray away from it.
yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing too, right? That for many of us, now there are outliers, but for a lot of us, we go to school, it's very linear path. You go to school, high school, all the way through high school, college, you get a degree, you get a job that ideally matches your degree. And in the world we live in now, I think increasingly it's becoming quite apparent that's not necessarily the case. You can learn outside of the four walls of the degree or your school and learn so many other things. And many times, even once you get into the real world, you get kicked in the teeth and you're like, oh my gosh, it's more
It
not
was
just
so
what I
different in
learned.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. What resources or communities have been particularly helpful to you? And I think you answered this to a certain degree with one of the previous things you shared.
The funny thing is, this is actually the organization you introduced me to, which I would say is Yes Phoenix. Well,
Awesome.
Yes Phoenix community has been transformational for me, right? Because I was able to interact with the tech entrepreneurship community so easily. And even though I'm from Phoenix, like I said, I worked at American Express, et cetera, I hardly knew anyone in the Arizona tech startup space. And Yes Phoenix, I've been able to gain exposure, actually access opportunities, network with people, and start to make my mark. So that was something you introduced me to a couple years ago. I think maybe 2 years ago, but it's been fantastic.
That's great to hear. I love to
Yeah.
hear that. And yeah, that community has been very helpful because you meet so many interesting people who are just being altruistic with their time, with
Yeah.
advice, with connections, opening up your network. That really helped me scale my agency. And I think this is something you do very well. It's what I'd call social selling. It's not hitting someone about the head with, here's a pitch, right? It's just
Yeah.
connecting, being interested. And as that goes on,
Exploring synergies. Yeah. Exchanging ideas.
quite naturally opportunities come up where you can be of service to them or vice versa. So that's something you do very well. And I think that's part of why you've really plugged into the community so well.
Yeah. It's great.
What future tech trends are you excited about right now?
So there's two, I think. I'm sure one of them. So I'm going to start with the less obvious, send my less obvious answer. So one is mixed reality, right? Mixed
Yeah.
reality has always excited me because I like the idea that we can remove the limitations of the physical world and we can build a world where we're blending physical and digital. And I really
Yeah.
think this is going to disrupt experiences, right? And increase economic opportunity, right? In all of our sectors, healthcare, retail, education, travel, you name it, there's going to be new experiences. But why I really like mixed reality is that this creates a way for us to create experiences that let us connect by letting us truly be in each other's shoes.
Yes.
The concept of walking a mile in someone's shoes, we actually are closer to it. And so we can understand problems from more perspectives and have more people connect to solve them. So that's what I think is really great about mixed reality. And second answer, I'm sure you can guess it, is generative AI, especially right now. And obviously, the way you're able to use it to create content, it's challenging every line of business and the way we think. But even this, why I really like it is because we're no longer limited to the skills that we learned in school or that we learned on the job, right? We are actually now able to use this to fill in our gaps, right? To take on the skills we don't have and grow. So I think, for example, artwork for me, I'm not good at drawing or painting or anything, but generative AI and generating artwork, right? There's so much we can do for the things we don't know how to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And that is great because that's something that with generative AI, I think those who will really take advantage of that are the domain experts, right? Where some things in your field, but then using AI as an enhancement, it's almost going to be like having superpowers, right?
Yeah.
So as a product person, for example, using generative AI to write my feature, my stories better, my PRDs faster, or at least the first draft. And I can go in there and really get it to the next level. But I think there's going to be a lot of disruption in that. Already we're seeing that.
There-
And for me, this is one, there's still a lot of cowboys, for lack of a better term, in this space because it's relatively new. A lot of folks still don't understand it. There's this massive opportunity to build right now. There's not a lot of regulations around it, which is a double-edged sword. And for me, and we've talked about this, right? There's going to be increasingly a need for best practices, thought leadership, white papers on this is how to do it. Here's a playbook. And that's what I'm interested in. Yeah, it's like, how can I help or at least plug into communities that are building that? Here's how to do it the right way. Here's a playbook.
And how to enhance your own products. And exactly. How do you use it almost as a tool, just like we're using other tools nowadays?
Yeah. When you're not building teams, building businesses and leading, what fills your tank, right? How do you recharge?
Yeah. So I think just simple things, right? On the creative front, I like to cook and bake, dabble into new recipes. I enjoy travel. I really enjoy writing as well and dance. And from a sense of just winding down, I enjoy sitcoms, just wind down, relax, unplug. That's really how I get recharged for the next day, the next set of
Yeah.
challenges, and the next look for it, like the next outlook for growth.
Yeah. That's amazing. And lastly, one thing I always like to add is an advice,
Sure.
so what advice would you give to women specifically, more broader, to individuals looking to step into leadership or grow, or maybe take the next step, starting a business perhaps, or something,
Absolutely.
something.
So there's a couple of things, honestly, that I wish I would have been told before I started. First
Yeah.
of all, sow seeds and build bridges. The relationships will help you grow your business and leadership skills in the long run. And you don't know what's going to bloom from these seeds. You don't know where these bridges will lead. And you actually don't even know when. But when they do, they're going to bring great opportunities that you couldn't have anticipated. And in my case, that short internship so many years ago and a LinkedIn message, I did not expect that would lead me to an entrepreneurial career. That bridge, that experience was very important. And that really takes me to the second point, which is don't dismiss the signals you get around you, embrace them because every experience is going to matter in your direction and your path, right? And the way you go forward. Thirdly, I would say it doesn't hurt to ask. Ask for the opportunities, advice, and help you need, right? You'll only find what you want if you look for it and ask. Again, asking is what led me to where I am. And then with that, persist, right? For if you want to build a business, especially, it's hard. You can't say it's easy from my own experience. My first year, I didn't have a single client, right? It was very difficult to get going, but focus on the long-term goals and persist through the doubts and disappointments. And what's important, I found, Anebi, is that don't use these setbacks to think about how far you are from your goal. Actually, every time you overcome these blocks, you're actually one step closer, right? You've overcome these accompanying fears. It's just you can't see it. Persisting and not giving into that mindset of, I can't do this, it's probably the most challenging thing for me as well. Still is every day, I think, even though we
Yeah.
got where we are, always think about how you're getting closer and further. And then lastly, that goes with embrace the uncertainty of entrepreneurship. That's what makes it exciting, right? Combining our skills with the adventure of learning. That's how we're going to grow and get more than we expected.
Yeah,
That's
totally. Thank you
what I would
so much.
say.
Oh man, sage advice, sage advice. And thank you so much for sharing those. And it has been wonderful pleasure to have you on the Inflection Podcast with me
It's been
today.
awesome to talk to you as well. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.